Okay, this is going to talk about bridge-to-bridge operation. The bridge is basically the command center of the ship. We're probably more familiar with it from Star Trek or some of our science fiction shows where the bridge is prominently featured. But it's the same with the ship. So it's going to be, in effect, where the captain is, where the ship is steered, and usually where the radio equipment is also. Navigating large vessels like this cruise ship requires expert bridge-to-bridge communication. Yeah, you don't want to run those into another ship or into the land or something that's on land. A lot of damage. In telecommunication, a bridge-to-bridge station is a station operating in the port operations service in which messages are restricted to navigational communication. So they don't want you to have regular conversation. They just want navigation information. How close are you to another ship is probably going to be the main navigational item talked about. And which is capable of operation from the ship's navigational bridge, or in the case of a dredge, from its main control station. Now, I'm not that familiar with what a dredge is, but we don't talk about it other than this explanation here. So basically, it's capable of operating on a frequency or frequencies in the 156 to 162 megahertz band. And that's going to be million hertz. So that 156 to 162, you might recognize that as being in the VHF band. The definition under the regulations for a bridge-to-bridge station is a radio station located on a ship's navigational bridge or main control station operating on a specified frequency which is used only for navigational communications in the 156 to 162 megahertz band. Pretty much a repeat of what we just talked about. And the first question is, what is a bridge-to-bridge station? And there's a number of options there. I think I can launch my poll now. Yes, I can. I'm going to move it off the screen. What is a bridge-to-bridge station? A, an internal communications system linking the wheelhouse with the ship's primary radio operating position and other integral ship control points. So they're pretty much saying not from one ship to another, but from the ship's wheelhouse to other parts of the ship. And there probably is some sort of on-ship communication system, but that's not the bridge-to-bridge station. B, an inland waterways or coastal radio station serving ship stations operating within the U.S. Now that looks like it's going to be ones that are on shore, not necessarily on the ship itself. So that's the shore station does not have a bridge. The bridge is on a ship. C, a portable ship station necessary to eliminate frequent application to operate a ship station on board different vessels. Oh, I see what they're trying to say. They're trying to say you have a portable ship station, but you can carry it to other ships, so you're carrying it from one bridge to another bridge. Clever, but not the right answer. So it's got to be D. A VHF radio station located on the ship's navigational bridge or main control station that is used only for navigational communications. So a well-written question, but it's going to be what the last one is. Bridge to bridge. They want the ships to be able to talk to each other about navigational items on a dedicated channel. And so D is going to be the correct answer. It's going to be within that narrow VHF radio band that was referred to. The word bridge refers to the pilot house where the ship's captain or the port pilot navigates the vessel in congested harbor or port waterways. VHF channel 13 is reserved for bridge-to-bridge communication only. And I have that on the screen, VHF channel 13. That allows larger ships to always have a common channel to radio their navigational intentions. I'm going to be turning left in another 30 clicks or whatever the pilot language is going to be. A related question: the primary purpose of bridge-to-bridge communications is... Relaunch the poll. What is the primary purpose? Is it search and rescue? A. Or is it short-range transmissions on the ship? Or is it C, navigational communications? Or is it the transmission of the captain's orders from the bridge? Yeah, it's going to be for navigational communications only. So that is more than just the primary purpose. It is the sole purpose. All right, I saw we did pretty good on that one. I'll share the results. Stop the share. I guess I am going to throw some regulations at you, even in these other sections. Regulation, another subsection of Part 80 is on the screen. Ship stations transmitting on any authorized VHF bridge-to-bridge channel may be identified by the name of the ship in lieu of the call sign. Let's see how that ties in with our question. 5. A ship station using VHF bridge-to-bridge channel 13, and it's got the number of options, so let me relaunch the poll. So you're a ship station, a ship radio station. You're using the bridge-to-bridge channel 13, which is in that 156 to 162 megahertz range. So that's clearly in the VHF range. Channel 13 probably picks one, the most common one in that range that doesn't have interference from nearby stations. The options are: A, may be identified by the name of the ship in lieu of a call sign. So you could just say, you could go on and say this is the Good Ship Lollipop, and you don't have to actually give your call sign. B, may be identified by call sign and country of origin. Now they do say may, so I don't really hate that answer. C, must be identified by call sign and name of vessel. Well, we just saw in the prior regulation that name of the ship in lieu of the call sign. And that's a may, isn't it? Yes, may be identified. Or D, does not need to identify itself within 100 miles from shore, which doesn't look like a good answer anyway. So I do like the A. It's the best of the answers. B is technically correct, I guess. Although I guess they would have to have still the name of the ship, not just the call sign. So A, clearly the best answer. in the poll, share the results, stop the share. Calling another ship station by that ship's name is perfectly legal because it often is impossible to know the other ship's call sign in advance. When you make contact on channel 13, the other ship station will identify itself with its own call sign. All right, so channel 13 is within that range, and it's 156.65, but don't commit that to memory because channel 13 is good enough. No other questions about it. So unlucky 13. All right, some more regulations here. This is talking about the communication procedure on the bridge to bridge. All right, so here's an example of the format that it should be using. 1, this is the good ship Lollipop. My position is 45 miles north southeast of whatever. In my course and speed, I'm going 15 knots with a bearing of north northeast, and I'm about to turn around out. And then it goes on, the best way to respond, etc. So that's A. C. Use of power greater than 1 watt in a bridge-to-bridge station shall be limited to the following 3 situations. So normally they just use a small power output, so you're not really calling out to the other side of the state, because when you're talking bridge to bridge, you're actually talking to other vessels that are in your vicinity. Those are the ones you're worried about for navigational. No sense telling somebody in the Bahamas what you're going to do here. But you can go over 1 watt in the following 3 situations. An emergency. 2, failure of the vessel being called to respond. So you're basically calling out to them using a bridge-to-bridge station, but they're not responding. So I guess you can crank up the volume a little bit then. Or C, a broadcast call in a blind situation. For example, rounding a bend in a river. So sometimes you're blind and you actually have radio. Your radio doesn't transmit as far or as effectively in a low power situation like 1 watt. So those are the 3 examples. Let's see what the question is. When is it legal to transmit high power on channel 13? Okay, did I share the results? Yes, I did. Can I relaunch? All right, so when is it legal to transmit high power on channel 13? And usually high power is 25 watts. Low power is 1 watt. A, failure of a vessel being called to respond. That was one of them. B, in a blind situation such as rounding a bend in a river. That was another one, so I guess we're going into all of the above. And C, during an emergency. So basically, yes, all of these. And that's going to be it. So all of these is going to be the correct answer. Yeah, if the other vessel fails to respond, or if an obstruction prevents low power communication, in such cases, higher output power is allowed. Similar question, when may a bridge-to-bridge transmission be more than 1 watt? And you'll notice each one of these key topics, there's usually one question where they ask it again. So there's a good chance that, well, at least a 1 out of 3 chance or a 2 out of 6 that you're going to be getting this question. So they basically reworded it When can you transmit more than 1 watt? First, let me end the last poll and share the results. You both got it right. Stop sharing. Relaunch. Continue. A, when broadcasting a distress message, which sounds like an emergency, and rounding a bend in a river or traveling in a blind spot. Well, that looks good. B, when broadcasting a distress message. Well, that's good also. C, when rounding a bend in a river or traveling in a blind spot. That looks good. Or when calling the Coast Guard. That doesn't look that good. All right, so probably what's the best answer, even though 3 of them technically are correct. Okay, I would go for the first one then. The distress message. And I think the and should be an or, but because that would throw me off right there. It's like, what? I'm in a distress message and I'm rounding a bend? No, it's got to be or. Or rounding a bend in a river or traveling in a blind spot, which would make the answer even better. But yeah, it's the correct answer anyway. The and, I have trouble with that word. That would throw me off. That would actually make one of the other answers more correct. So they should correct some of these. They probably haven't had too many people study them as closely. In an emergency or when rounding a bend in a river, 25 watts may be selected to ensure your Channel 13 communications are heard further away. When you have a 25 watt marine VHF radio. If you switch it to channel 13, the internal software drops the power output to 1 watt. So you don't have to physically do that. It'll look like it says low power on the display, but you do have the ability to change that. We did talk about the vessel traffic service a little bit. It's similar to air traffic control. The regulatory definition is on the bottom. It's a U.S. Coast Guard traffic control service for ships in designated water areas to prevent collisions, groundings, and environmental harm. Typical VTS systems use radar, closed-circuit television, VHF radio, and automatic identification systems. Oh, here's our picture from London again, where they're doing it on the river. Apparently, Channel 14 is the common channel for the VTS services throughout the country. But they might have other channels as well. Passive vessels, such as smaller passenger ferries or dredges, will also squawk their position via AIS and do more listening than transmitting on the VTS channels. They do think of VTS as air traffic control for ships, but it's slightly different in that the information provided by the VTS centers is based on reports of participating vessels and can be no more accurate than the information they receive. They may not know all the hazardous circumstances within their area, and unlike ATC, VTS does not usually issue orders to incoming or departing ships. So I guess it would be suggestions. What traffic management service is operated by the U.S. Coast Guard in certain designated water areas to prevent ship collisions, groundings, and environmental harm? Is it B, the Vessel Traffic Service, VTS? I think it might be. Or Water Safety Management Bureau? Or Ship Movement and Safety Agency? They're probably making some of these words up. Although I wouldn't have doubt if there is an agency named that. Interdepartmental Harbor and Port Patrol. No, it's the VTS. That's operated by the U.S. Coast Guard, certain designated water areas to prevent ship collisions, grounding, and environmental harm. It operates in the 156 megahertz range and protects, among other regions, the Puget Sound area of Seattle, certainly New York, New Orleans, and Houston. Houston. Okay. Houston isn't right on the Gulf. Oh, well. Other regions use VTS when there's no interference to the regions just described. All right, the picture is from the VTS managing traffic in crowded waters such as the lower Mississippi near New Orleans. Good sized ship. And that's it.